The stars looked different from the bridge of the USS Leviathan. Captain Jake Morrison stood near the main viewing screen, watching the endless black space that surrounded their ship. Earth was now 3 weeks behind them, and they were deeper in space than any human had ever traveled before. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and serious eyes. He had spent 15 years in the Earth Space Navy, but nothing had prepared him for this mission. The Leviathan was not like other ships. It was bigger, stronger, and carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. Most importantly, it was humanity's first real warship designed to fight aliens. "Captain, we have something on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Lisa Barnes from her station. Lisa was the ship's communication officer. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick fingers that moved across her control panels like a pianist. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of something, Lieutenant?" "It's big, sir. Much bigger than us. The computer says it's about 3 times our size." Lisa's voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "And Captain, it just appeared out of nowhere." 1 second there was nothing. The next second it was there. Jake nodded and moved to the center of the bridge. The Leviathan's bridge was not like the bridges in old movies. Everything was clean and white, with holographic displays that showed information in the air. A crew worked at stations arranged in a circle around the captain's chair. "Mr. Phillips, what do our weapons show?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips looked up from the tactical station. Ryan was a weapons expert who had helped design some of the Leviathan systems. He was a short man with red hair and glasses, but his knowledge of weapons made him one of the most dangerous people on the ship. "All systems are ready, Captain. The main gun is charged and waiting. Point defense systems are online. Shields are at full power," Ryan reported. Jake sat down in his captain's chair and pressed a button. "All hands, this is the captain. We have contact with an unknown vessel. All crew to battle stations. This is not a drill." The ship's lights changed from white to red. Alarm sounded for 10 seconds, then stopped. Jake could hear the crew moving through the corridors outside the bridge, getting ready for whatever was coming. Navigator Amy Roberts spoke from her station. "Captain, the alien ship is moving toward us. Current speed suggests they will be in weapons range in 12 minutes. Amy was a quiet woman who rarely spoke unless she had something important to say. She had been navigating ships for 8 years and knew space better than most people knew their own neighborhoods. Her job was to keep the Leviathan moving in the right direction and to plot escape routes if things went bad. "Any communication attempts from them?" Jake asked Lisa. "Nothing yet, sir." "But wait." Lisa pressed several buttons and listened to her. "Headphones. I'm getting something now. It's coming through on multiple frequencies. They want to talk." Jake straightened in his chair. This was the moment they had trained for. First contact with an alien species. Everything humanity did in the next few minutes might decide whether the two species became friends or enemies. "Put it on the main screen, Lieutenant." The viewing screen changed from showing stars to showing the inside of the alien ship. The creature looking back at them was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Its head was larger than a human head, and its eyes were completely black. When it spoke, its voice was deep and seemed to come from somewhere other than its mouth. "Greetings, primitive species," the alien said. "I am Admiral Zixtheri of the Galactic Council 4th Fleet. You have entered space that belongs to the Council. By law, you must surrender your vessel and submit to Council authority." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Leviathan. We come in peace, but we don't recognize your authority over this area of space." The alien's black eyes seemed to grow even darker. You misunderstand your situation, human. The Galactic Council has ruled this part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Every species that has entered space has joined the Council or been destroyed. There are no other options. Behind Jake, Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez entered the bridge. Carlos was a big man with strong hands who understood every system on the Leviathan better than anyone else. He had been checking the ship's power systems when the alarm sounded. "Captain," Carlos said quietly, "all systems are running perfectly. We have full power to everything." Jake nodded but didn't take his eyes off the alien on the screen. "Admiral Zexthery, what exactly does joining your council involve?" "Simple," the alien replied. "You will surrender all your weapons and technology to us. You will allow council representatives to govern your world. Your people will work for the benefit of the council. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing." The bridge became very quiet. Every member of Jake's crew was listening to this conversation, and Jake knew they were all thinking the same thing he was thinking. The alien was not offering friendship or partnership. He was demanding complete surrender. "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. Admiral Zexthery made a sound that might have been laughter. "No species has ever refused, human. But if you did, we would destroy your ship, find your home world, and eliminate your entire species. The Council does not tolerate defiance." Jake looked around his bridge. Lisa was watching him carefully, waiting for orders. Ryan had his hand near the weapons controls. Amy was already plotting escape routes on her navigation system. Carlos stood, ready to give the engines everything they had. These were good people. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never see Earth again. They had trained for years to operate the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. And now an alien was telling them to surrender everything without a fight. Jake stood up and looked directly at the alien on the screen. "Admiral Zexthery, I want to make sure I understand your offer correctly. You want us to give up our freedom, our technology, and our independence. In return, you promise not to kill us all. Is that correct?" "That is correct, human." "You have 1 minute to decide." Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. "Admiral, humanity has a saying. It goes like this: give me liberty or give me death. We would rather die free than live as slaves." The alien's expression changed. For the first time, Admiral Zexthery looked surprised. "You are refusing the Council's generous offer." "That's exactly what we're doing," Jake said. "And Admiral, I have a suggestion for you. Turn your ship around and go back to wherever you came from. If you try to attack us, you're going to regret it." Admiral Zexthery's image disappeared from the screen, replaced by the view of space and the alien ship. But now Jake could see that the ship was much closer than before. Lights were beginning to glow along its hull, and Jake knew those lights meant weapons were charging. "Captain," Ryan said from his station, "the alien ship is powering up weapons systems. I count at least 40 different weapon ports. They're getting ready to shoot." Jake sat back down in his captain's chair and pressed the communication button that would let him talk to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain. The aliens have refused our peaceful intentions and are preparing to attack. We are going to show them that humans do not surrender and humans do not run. Prepare for battle." He turned to Ryan. "Mr. Phillips, charge all weapon systems. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." "Aye, Captain. All weapons coming online now." Jake looked at the alien ship on the viewing screen. It was massive and covered with weapons, but Jake was not afraid. The Leviathan had been built by humans who understood that sometimes the only way to keep peace was to be ready for war. The aliens were about to learn why humans had survived every challenge their dangerous planet had thrown at them. The battle was about to begin, and Jake Morrison was ready to show the galaxy what humans could do when they were pushed too far. Admiral Zexthery stood in the command center of his ship. The Void Talon, the human vessel on his viewing screen, looked small and weak compared to his mighty battlecruiser. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered 47 different species. Each time, the pattern was the same. First, the new species would act brave and refuse his demands. Then, after he showed them his superior firepower, they would beg for mercy and surrender. The humans would be no different. "Commander Vexilon," he said to his second-in-command, "fire a warning shot across their bow. Show these primitives what real weapons can do." Commander Vexilon was a younger alien with the same blue skin and black eyes as the Admiral. He had served under Zexthery for 10 years and had never seen his commander fail to break a new species. "Yes, Admiral." "Charging plasma cannon, number 3. Vexilon replied. The Void Talon's hull lit up as the massive plasma cannon began to charge. The weapon drew power from the ship's 3 fusion reactors, building up enough energy to melt a mountain. When fully charged, the cannon fired a bright blue beam that shot across space toward the human ship. Admiral Zexthery watched with satisfaction. The plasma beam was designed to pass just in front of the human vessel, close enough to show them what would happen if they continued to resist. Any civilized species would immediately surrender after seeing such a display of power. But something was wrong. The plasma beam struck something 50 meters in front of the human ship and simply disappeared. It did not pass by the vessel as planned. It did not damage anything. It just vanished like it had never existed. What happened? Admiral Zexthery demanded. Commander Vexilon checked his instruments, confusion clear on his face. "Sir, our sensors show that the humans have some kind of energy barrier around their ship." The plasma beam hit the barrier and was absorbed completely. Admiral Zexthery had never heard of such technology. Energy shields existed, but they reflected or deflected weapons. They did not simply absorb plasma beams and make them disappear. On the bridge of the USS Leviathan, Captain Jake Morrison allowed himself a small smile. The alien weapon had performed exactly as their scientists had predicted. The Leviathan's quantum field generators had absorbed the plasma energy and converted it into power for the ship's own systems. "Mr. Phillips," Jake said calmly, "I believe it's our turn to send a message. Show them what a real warning shot looks like." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips had been waiting for this moment since the Leviathan left Earth. His fingers moved quickly across the weapons control panel, activating systems that no alien species had ever seen before. "Kinetic artillery system online, Captain. Target acquired on the alien vessel's starboard side." Ryan reported. The Leviathan's main weapon was not a laser or plasma cannon. Human engineers had decided that the best way to destroy things in space was to hit them with solid objects moving very, very fast. The kinetic artillery system used magnetic fields to accelerate tungsten rods to 30% of light speed. The projectile that Ryan fired was no bigger than a baseball. It weighed exactly 10 kilograms and was made of the hardest metal known to human science. When the magnetic accelerators released it, the tungsten rod shot toward the alien ship faster than any missile or energy beam. Admiral Zexthery saw a small flash of light from the human vessel, but his sensors could not track what had been fired. The object was too small and moving too fast for his detection systems to follow. The tungsten rod hit the Void Talon's starboard shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. The projectile continued through the ship's outer hull, through 17 decks filled with alien equipment and crew members, and out the other side of the vessel. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire ship. Emergency lights began flashing as atmosphere vented from the holes in the hull. Damage reports flooded Admiral Zextheria's command center from every section of the ship. Impossible, Admiral Zextheri whispered, staring at the destruction reports on his screens. No kinetic weapon should have penetrated our shields. The energy requirements would be enormous. Commander Vexilon worked frantically at his station, trying to understand what had happened. Sir, our shields absorbed over 90% of the projectile's energy, but it still had enough force to punch clean through our hull. The humans must have fired it at incredible speed. Admiral Zextheri felt something he had not experienced in many years. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. In all his campaigns of conquest, he had never encountered a species with technology that could defeat Council shields so easily. The communication system activated, and Captain Morrison's voice filled the Void Talon's command center. Admiral Zextheri, I hope that demonstration was educational. What you just experienced was our smallest weapon firing at minimum power. I strongly suggest you reconsider your position. Admiral Zextheri looked at the damage reports again. The human projectile had destroyed 2 weapons batteries, 3 shield generators, and a section of the ship's main computer core. If that was their smallest weapon at minimum power, what could their largest weapon do at full power? Human, Admiral. Zextheri said into the communication system, your weapon technology is impressive, but you are still only one ship. The Galactic Council has thousands of vessels. You cannot fight us all. Captain Morrison's reply was calm and confident. Admiral, we don't want to fight anyone. But if you force us to defend ourselves, we will use whatever means necessary to protect our ship and our species. Admiral Zextheri ended the communication and turned to Commander Vexilon. The younger alien was studying sensor readings from the human ship, trying to understand their technology. What do our sensors tell us about their vessel? The Admiral asked. It's very strange, sir, Vexilon replied. The ship appears to have multiple fusion reactors, much more powerful than ours. Their hull is made from materials our sensors cannot identify. And, sir, there are weapon systems all over their ship that we have never seen before. Admiral Zextheri studied the human vessel on his viewing screen. It looked different from any ship he had ever encountered. Where Council ships were built for beauty and intimidation, the human ship looked like it was built for only one purpose: war. Commander, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have encountered a new species with advanced technology. Request immediate reinforcement. From the 4th Fleet. Sir, are you sure that's necessary? It's only one ship. Admiral Zextheri looked at the damage reports one more time. The human weapon had caused more damage in one shot than most species could manage with their entire arsenal. Commander, I have conquered 47 species. I know what I'm facing. Something dangerous. Send the message. As Commander Vexilon sent the emergency signal, Admiral Zextheri continued to study the human ship. He noticed something that made his blood run cold. The vessel was not damaged at all from their plasma. Cannon attack. In fact, it seemed to be glowing slightly brighter than before, as if their weapon had somehow made it stronger. On the Leviathan's bridge, Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez reported from the engine room. Captain, the aliens' plasma attack added 12% to our power reserves. The quantum field generators are working better than we hoped. Jake nodded. The Leviathan had been designed with a simple philosophy: turn every enemy attack into an advantage. The ship's shields did not just protect the vessel. They captured enemy weapons' energy and fed it into the ship's own power systems. Navigator. Roberts, what's our tactical situation? Jake asked. Amy Roberts looked up from her navigation console. Captain, I'm detecting hyperspace distortions. Multiple contacts approaching our position. The aliens are calling for help. Jake was not surprised. One alien ship had been too easy. He had expected them to call for reinforcements as soon as they realized humans were not going to surrender. How many ships, Navigator? 7 additional contacts, Captain. All approximately the same size as the current hostile vessel. Lieutenant Lisa Barnes spoke from her communication station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien commander. Put him on screen, Lieutenant. Admiral Zexteria's image appeared on the viewing screen again, but this time he looked different. The confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like respect mixed with fear. Captain Morrison, the alien said, reinforcements are arriving. 8 council ships against your 1 vessel. I will give you one final chance to surrender. Join the council peacefully, and your species will be treated well. Jake stood up from his captain's chair and looked directly at the alien commander. Admiral, you seem to think that having more ships gives you an advantage. You're about to learn why that's not necessarily true. What do you mean, human? Jake smiled, and this time it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, you made 2 mistakes. Today, first, you threatened the wrong species. Second, you brought too few ships. The communication ended, and Jake turned to his crew. Around him, the bridge was quiet, except for the soft sounds of the ship's systems. His people were ready for whatever came next. Mr. Phillips, activate all weapon systems. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. Ryan Phillips' fingers flew over his controls, bringing online weapons that had never been tested in real combat. All systems ready, Captain. We have enough firepower to level a continent. The space around the USS Leviathan filled with massive alien warships as Admiral Zexteria's reinforcements arrived. 7 additional vessels materialized from hyperspace, each one as large and threatening as the Void Talon. The 8 Council. Ships formed a circle around the lone human vessel, their hulls gleaming with weapon ports and shield generators. Admiral Zexteri felt his confidence returning as he looked at the tactical display. 8 of the Council's most advanced warships against 1 primitive human vessel. The odds were now in his favor, regardless of whatever strange technology the humans possessed. All ships, this is Admiral Zexteri, he broadcast to the fleet. Target the human vessel. Full power to all weapon systems. I want nothing left of that ship but cosmic dust. Captain Torgan of the battlecruiser Stellar Fang replied immediately. Admiral, are you certain? Our sensors show their shields absorbed your plasma cannon completely. Perhaps we should attempt negotiation again. Admiral Zexteri's black eyes grew darker with anger. Captain Torgan, I have been humiliated by these primitives. No species defies the Galactic Council and survives. All ships will fire on my command. On the bridge of the Leviathan, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien ships take their positions. Each vessel was 3 times larger than his ship, armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Any normal species would have surrendered immediately when faced with such overwhelming force, but humans were not normal. Captain, Navigator Amy Roberts reported from her station. All 8 ships have us surrounded. They're maintaining a distance of 10,000 kilometers on all sides. Standard Council attack formation. Jake nodded. The aliens were being smart, staying far enough away to avoid close-range weapons while keeping the Leviathan from escaping. It was a textbook space combat maneuver that had probably worked against every other species they had encountered. Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez entered the bridge carrying a datapad. His big hands moved quickly across the device as he checked the ship's power systems one final time. Captain, all reactors are running at 100% efficiency. Shield generators are fully charged. The quantum field matrix is stable and ready for whatever they throw at us. Carlos reported. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips looked up from his weapons console with barely contained excitement. Captain, I have target locks on all 8 ships. The kinetic artillery system is loaded and ready. Point defense systems are online. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Jake pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to face 8 enemy warships in combat. Each of you volunteered for this mission, knowing you might not return home. Today, you have the chance to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Make Earth proud. Throughout the ship, 300 crew members prepared for battle. In the engine room, Carlos's team monitored the fusion reactors that would power their weapons. In the weapons bays, Ryan's people loaded tungsten rods into the magnetic accelerators. In every section of the ship, humans got ready to fight for their species' freedom. Admiral Zixthuri opened a communication channel to the human ship. Captain Morrison, you are surrounded by 8 Council warships. Your vessel cannot possibly survive against our combined firepower. This is your final opportunity to surrender. Jake appeared on the alien admiral's viewing screen, looking calm and confident, despite being outnumbered 8-1. Admiral, I appreciate your concern for my crew's safety, but you seem to have misunderstood something important about humans. What is that, human? We don't know how to surrender, Jake replied. And Admiral, you're about to discover why Earth needed only one ship to explore the galaxy. The communication ended, and Admiral Zixthuri felt a chill run through his blue skin. Something about the human captain's confidence worried him. No species should be that calm when facing impossible odds, unless they knew something he did not. All ships commence firing. Destroy that vessel immediately. 8 alien warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams, particle cannons, quantum torpedoes, and graviton pulses converged on the Leviathan's position. The combined energy release was visible from neighboring star systems, creating a light show that could have powered a civilization for decades. The barrage continued for 30 seconds, filling the space around the human ship with enough destructive energy to crack a planet's crust. When the weapons finally stopped firing, the alien commanders waited for the light to fade so they could see the debris field that had once been the USS Leviathan. But when the energy dissipated, the human ship was still there. Not only was it undamaged, it seemed to be glowing brighter than before. The Leviathan sat in the middle of the destruction field like a predator that had just been fed a large meal. On the Leviathan's bridge, the crew watched their instrument readings with amazement. Lieutenant Lisa Barnes checked her communication equipment twice to make sure it was working correctly. Captain, shield strength is now at 115% of maximum. The alien weapons actually made our shield stronger, she reported. Carlos's voice came over the intercom from the engine room, filled with professional satisfaction. Captain, all that energy they threw at us has been converted to power. Our reactors are now running at 130% capacity. We have more power available than we've ever had before. Jake stood up from his captain's chair and looked at the tactical display. 8 alien ships surrounded his vessel, their weapons cooling down after the massive barrage. He could imagine the confusion and fear on their bridges as they tried to understand how their target had not only survived, but seemed to have grown stronger. Mr. Phillips, I believe it's time to respond. Show them what happens when you feed energy to a human warship. Ryan Phillips had been waiting his entire career for this moment. His fingers moved across the weapons console with the precision of a master craftsman preparing his greatest work. Target selection complete, Captain. All primary systems are online and ready. We have enough power to maintain continuous fire for the next 6 hours. Then let's not keep them waiting, Mr. Phillips. Fire when ready. The USS Leviathan began to change. Hull plates shifted and rearranged themselves, revealing weapon systems that had been hidden beneath the ship's outer armor. The vessel's 3 fusion reactors cycled up to maximum output, and space around the ship began to shimmer with barely contained energy. Admiral Zextheri watched in horror as the human ship transformed before his eyes. Weapon ports opened along its hull, like eyes awakening from sleep. Strange devices emerged from hidden compartments, their purpose unknown, but clearly threatening. The small vessel that had seemed insignificant now looked like the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. "What is that thing?" whispered Captain Torgen over the fleet communication channel. Admiral Zextheri had no answer. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a vessel reconfigure itself for battle. The human ship was becoming something else entirely, something that made his experienced crew whisper prayers to forgotten gods. The Leviathan's response began with surgical precision. Ryan Phillips had spent months studying alien ship designs, learning where their critical systems were located. He did not waste shots on heavily armored sections or redundant systems. Instead, he targeted the specific points that would cause maximum damage with minimum effort. The first tungsten rod struck the Stellar Fang's main reactor housing. The projectile, no larger than a baseball, but moving at 30% of light speed, punched through the ship's shields and armor like they were made of tissue paper. The reactor containment failed immediately, creating a cascade of explosions that tore the massive warship apart from the inside. Captain Torgen had just enough time to realize his ship was dying before the bridge vented its atmosphere into space. The Stellar Fang, pride of the Fourth Fleet, became an expanding cloud of debris and radiation in less than 10 seconds. Impossible, Admiral Zextheri breathed, watching one of the Council's most advanced warships destroyed by a single shot. From the human vessel Dot, but the Leviathan was just getting started. Ryan Phillips had 7 more targets, and the ship's magnetic accelerators could fire 1 tungsten rod every 3 seconds. The human doctrine of warfare was simple. If one shot could destroy a target, why waste ammunition with multiple shots? The heavy cruiser Stormbringer died next, its command section vaporized by a tungsten rod that struck at precisely the right angle to penetrate its bridge armor. The battleship Void Hammer lasted slightly longer, its captain managing to broadcast a warning to the fleet before a kinetic projectile destroyed his ship's main power grid and left the vessel drifting helplessly in space. Amy Roberts tracked each kill with clinical precision, updating the tactical display as alien ships disappeared from her sensors. Target Alpha destroyed. Target Beta destroyed. Target Gamma is disabled and venting atmosphere. Target Delta is attempting to withdraw, but taking critical damage. The alien fleet was learning a harsh lesson about human warfare philosophy. Where other species built ships with multiple redundant systems and elaborate defenses, humans had focused on building weapons so powerful that defenses became irrelevant. The Leviathan did not need to outmaneuver its enemies or outlast them in a prolonged battle. It simply destroyed them faster than they could react. The USS Leviathan floated in space like a predator that had just finished hunting. Around the human ship, pieces of destroyed alien vessels drifted in expanding clouds of metal and gas. What had once been 8 of the Galactic Council's most powerful warships was now nothing but debris and fading energy signatures. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display as his crew tracked the remaining threats. Of the 8 ships that had attacked them, only Admiral Zextheri's vessel, the Void Talon, remained intact. Even that ship was badly damaged, with multiple hull breaches and failing systems throughout its massive structure. Damage report on the remaining alien vessel. Jake ordered. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips checked his targeting systems and weapon status. Captain, the alien flagship has lost main power to 3 of its 4 engine sections. Their weapon systems are offline. Life support appears to be failing on multiple decks. They're basically floating dead in space. Navigator Amy Roberts looked up from her station with professional satisfaction. Captain, The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds from first shot to final target destruction. All enemy vessels except one have been eliminated. Jake nodded and walked to the center of his bridge. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, monitoring their systems and preparing for whatever might come next. They had just won the most one-sided space battle in galactic history, but none of them acted like they were surprised by the outcome. "Mr. Mendez, what's our ship status?" Jake asked over the intercom. Chief Engineer Carlos Mendez's voice came back immediately from the engine room. "Captain, all systems are operating within normal parameters. The quantum field generators absorbed so much energy from the alien weapons that we're actually running better than when we started the fight. Fusion reactors are stable, weapon systems are fully charged, and we have enough power stored to fight another fleet this size." Jake allowed himself a small smile. The Leviathan had been designed by the best engineers on Earth with one simple goal: make sure that any alien species that attacked humanity would regret it immediately. The ship had performed exactly as intended. "Lieutenant Barnes, open a communication. Channel to the surviving alien vessel." Communications Officer Lisa Barnes worked at her station for several seconds before looking up with concern. "Captain, their communication systems appear to be damaged. I'm only getting weak signals from their ship. Most of their equipment seems to be offline." Jake considered this for a moment. The alien admiral was probably dealing with emergency repairs and crew casualties. But Jake needed to establish communication if he was going to prevent this incident from starting a larger war. "Keep trying, Lieutenant. Use emergency frequencies if necessary. I need to talk to their commander." While Lisa worked on establishing communication, Jake thought about what had just happened. Earth's leaders had sent the Leviathan into space, knowing that humanity would eventually encounter hostile alien species. They had built the ship to be so overwhelmingly powerful that any reasonable species would choose negotiation over warfare. After seeing what it could do, the plan had worked perfectly. In less than 18 minutes, a single human warship had destroyed an entire alien battle fleet. The message was clear: humanity was not a species that could be bullied or conquered. "Captain," Amy Roberts called from her navigation station, "I'm detecting hyperspace signatures. Multiple contacts approaching our position." Jake felt his stomach tighten. More alien ships were coming, and he had no way of knowing if they were reinforcements for the Admiral or representatives coming to negotiate. "How many ships, Navigator?" 12 contacts, sir. All much larger than the vessels we just fought. These appear to be capital ships, possibly Council heavy cruisers or battleships." Ryan Phillips checked his weapon systems one more time. "Captain, we still have full combat capability. The kinetic artillery system is loaded and ready. If these new ships are hostile, we can engage immediately." Jake shook his head. "Mr. Phillips, if 12 capital ships arrive and immediately attack U.S., we may have a more difficult fight than the last one. I'd prefer to avoid that if possible." The new alien ships began materializing from hyperspace around the battle site. Jake counted them as they appeared. Massive vessels that dwarfed even Admiral Zex Thery's battlecruiser. Each ship was easily 5 times larger than the Leviathan, armed with weapon systems that could probably destroy entire moons. But the new arrivals did not immediately attack. Instead, they took positions around the debris field and began scanning the wreckage of their destroyed fleet. Jake could imagine the shock and confusion on their bridges as they tried to understand how 8 warships had been eliminated so quickly. "Captain," Lisa Barnes said suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission from one of the new ships. It's on a diplomatic frequency, not a military channel. Put it through, Lieutenant." The main viewing screen activated, showing the bridge of one of the alien capital ships. The creature looking back at Jake was different from Admiral Zex Thery. This alien was older, with silver markings on its blue skin and eyes that seemed to hold wisdom rather than aggression. "Greetings, human vessel," the alien said in a voice that was calm and respectful. "I am High Commander Veltara of the Galactic Council Diplomatic Corps. We have come to investigate reports of a battle in this sector." Jake stepped forward, maintaining a respectful but confident posture. "High Commander, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Leviathan. We were attacked by Council warships and defended ourselves according to our rights under interstellar law." High Commander Veltara's expression did not change, but Jake noticed that her black eyes seemed to focus more intently on him. "Captain Morrison, our records show that 8 Council military vessels were destroyed in this engagement. Can you explain how one ship accomplished such a feat?" "High Commander, your Admiral Zix Theory demanded that humanity surrender our freedom and independence. When we refused, he attacked us with his entire fleet. We simply defended ourselves with whatever force was necessary." The alien commander was quiet for several long seconds, apparently considering Jake's words. Around her, other aliens worked, at stations similar to those Jake had seen on Admiral Zexthery's ship. But these creatures seemed more focused on gathering information than preparing for battle. "Captain Morrison, may I speak with Admiral Zexthery? I need to hear his account of these events." Jake nodded. "High Commander, the Admiral's ship is badly damaged, but he appears to be alive. Lieutenant Barnes, can you establish communication with the Void Talon?" Lisa worked at her station for nearly a minute before succeeding in connecting to the damaged alien vessel. When Admiral Zexthery's image appeared on the screen, he looked very different from the confident commander who had demanded humanity's surrender. His uniform was torn, there was a cut on his forehead, and his black eyes held something Jake had never expected to see: fear. "High Commander Veltara," Admiral Zexthery said weakly, "I formally request immediate rescue and medical assistance for my surviving crew." "Admiral, explain what happened here," High Commander Veltara ordered. Admiral Zexthery looked at Jake, then back at his superior officer. "High Commander, I encountered the human vessel and delivered standard council demands for surrender and integration. The humans refused and demonstrated military technology far superior to our own. When I called for fleet reinforcements, they destroyed 8 warships in less than 20 minutes. Admiral, you called for military reinforcements against a single vessel from a species we had never encountered before? High Commander, their weapons penetrated our shields like they were not there. Their defensive systems absorbed our most powerful attacks and used the energy to make their ship stronger. I have never seen technology like this in 40 years of military service." High Commander Veltara turned her attention back to Jake. "Captain Morrison, what are humanity's intentions regarding the Galactic Council?" Jake had been thinking about this question since the battle began. Earth's leaders had given him broad authority to negotiate on behalf of humanity, but they had also been very clear about certain principles that could not be compromised. "High Commander, humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species. We have no desire to conquer or control other civilizations. However, we will not accept domination by any external authority. We govern ourselves, and we defend ourselves with whatever means necessary. And if the Council decides that humanity represents a threat to galactic stability?" Jake's expression became very serious. "High Commander, Admiral Zexthery just learned. What happens when someone threatens humanity? We would prefer to be friends with the Council, but we are prepared to be enemies if that's what you choose." High Commander Veltara was quiet for a long time, studying Jake's face and apparently considering her options. Around her, the 12 capital ships maintained their positions, but Jake noticed that their weapon systems remained powered down. Finally, the alien commander spoke again. "Captain Morrison, I believe we need to have a much longer conversation about the relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council. Would you be willing to accompany me to the Council homeworld for formal negotiations? Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Lisa Barnes nodded encouragingly. 3 days later, the USS Leviathan arrived at the Galactic Council homeworld of Nexus Prime. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the massive planet that appeared on their main viewing screen. The world was covered with gleaming cities that stretched from pole to pole, connected by transport networks that moved millions of aliens between the continents. "Captain," Navigator Amy Roberts reported, "we're being guided to a space station in high orbit. The station appears to be the size of a small moon. I've never seen anything like it." Jake nodded as he watched the Council's orbital headquarters grow larger on the screen. The station was a perfect sphere, covered with docking bays, communication arrays, and defensive weapons. Ships from dozens of different species moved in carefully controlled patterns around the structure, creating a constant flow of traffic that spoke of an advanced civilization. "Mr. Phillips, what do our sensors show about their defenses?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips checked his tactical displays before answering. "Captain, the station has more weapons than some planets. I count over 500 separate gun positions, plus shield generators that could probably stop anything short of a direct hit from a star. But, sir, none of their weapons are targeting us. In fact, they seem to be powered down." Communications. Officer Lisa Barnes looked up from her station with interest. "Captain, I'm receiving docking instructions from Station Control. They're assigning us a berth normally reserved for Council member species flagships. That's a significant diplomatic courtesy." Jake allowed himself a small smile. 3 days ago, the Council had been demanding humanity's surrender. Now they were treating the Leviathan like an honored guest. The destruction of Admiral Zextheres' fleet had clearly sent the right message. "Take us in, Navigator. Let's see what the Council leadership has to say." As the Leviathan approached its assigned docking bay, Jake could see alien ships moving away from their position. Word of the battle had spread quickly through Council space, and most species apparently preferred to keep their distance from the human warship that had single-handedly destroyed an entire fleet. Engineer Carlos Mendez entered the bridge, carrying a formal dress uniform. "Captain, you asked me to remind you about the diplomatic protocols. The Council expects you to attend their assembly in person." Jake took the uniform and looked at his crew. In a few hours, he would be walking into a room filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species, many of whom probably wanted to see humanity destroyed. But he would not be going alone. "Mr. Phillips, you're with me. So are Lieutenant Barnes and Navigator Roberts. Mr. Mendez, you have the ship while we're gone." Carlos nodded seriously. "Captain, if anything goes wrong down there, we'll be ready to get you out quickly." "I'm counting on it, Chief." 2 hours later, Jake and his 3 officers walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters. The station's interior was as impressive as its exterior, with halls large enough to accommodate the biggest species in the galaxy and technology that seemed almost magical to human eyes. High Commander Veltara met them at the entrance to the Council Assembly Chamber. The alien diplomat looked nervous, which Jake found interesting. If the Council's own representatives were worried about this meeting, the political situation was probably more complicated than he had realized. "Captain Morrison, before we enter the chamber, I need to explain what you're about to see. The Council Assembly contains representatives from over 800 species. Many of them are very angry about what happened to Admiral Zextheres' fleet." Jake straightened his uniform and checked that his sidearm was properly secured. Earth's leaders had given him permission to carry weapons during diplomatic meetings, understanding that not all alien species would respect diplomatic immunity. "High Commander, I appreciate the warning, but humanity's position hasn't changed. We're here to establish peaceful relations, but we won't accept domination or threats. I understand, Captain. Please remember that many of these species have never seen their military forces defeated so completely. They may say things that seem hostile, but fear often makes people act aggressively. The massive doors to the assembly chamber opened, revealing a circular room that could have held 100,000 beings. Thousands of aliens from every conceivable species filled the tiered seating, their voices creating a noise that sounded like a storm approaching across Waterdot as Jake and his officers entered the chamber. The noise gradually died away. Every eye, tentacle, and sensory organ in the room focused on the four humans walking calmly toward the center of the floor. Jake could feel the weight of their attention, but he kept his expression neutral and his pace steady. High Commander Veltara led them to a raised platform in the center of the chamber. "Honored representatives," she announced, her voice amplified throughout the massive room. "I present Captain Jake Morrison and officers of the human vessel USS Leviathan." The reaction was immediate and intense. Some aliens began speaking angrily, in their own languages. Others made sounds that Jake assumed were expressions of fear or concern. A few species remained completely silent, watching the humans with what appeared to be calculating intelligence. An enormous alien with multiple arms and a voice like thunder spoke first. "High Commander, these humans destroyed 8 Council warships without provocation. They represent a clear threat to galactic peace and must be eliminated immediately." Jake stepped forward before High Commander Veltara could respond. "Representative, my name is Captain Jake Morrison. Your Admiral Zeke's Theory attacked my ship after demanding that humanity surrender our freedom and independence. We defended ourselves according to our rights, under any reasonable interpretation of interstellar law." Another alien, this one resembling a giant insect, clicked its mandibles aggressively. "Human, no species has ever resisted Council authority successfully. Your actions set a dangerous precedent that could destabilize our entire civilization." Lisa Barnes whispered quietly to Jake. "Captain, I'm monitoring their communication frequencies. About half the species in this room are terrified of us. The other half are angry, but also scared." Jake nodded slightly and addressed the assembly again. "Representatives, humanity did not seek conflict with the Council. We were exploring space peacefully when your military forces demanded our surrender. If you want to avoid future conflicts, I suggest you change your approach to dealing with new species." A third alien, tall and thin with skin that seemed to shift colors, spoke in a voice that sounded like music. "Captain Morrison, what does humanity want from the Council?" This was the question Jake had been waiting for. He looked around the enormous chamber, making sure his voice would carry to every representative present. "Humanity wants peaceful relations with all species," he said clearly. "We want to trade knowledge, culture, and resources. We want to explore the galaxy and learn about civilizations that developed differently from our own. We want to be friends and allies with anyone who approaches us with respect. And if species refuse these peaceful relations, ask the insect-like alien." Jake's expression became very serious. "Then they will be left alone, as long as they leave us alone. But if anyone threatens humanity or our allies, they will discover why Earth needed only one ship to announce our presence to the galaxy." The chamber erupted in discussion as hundreds of species debated among themselves. Jake could hear fragments of conversation translated through his communication device, and most of the discussions seemed to focus on the implications of humanity's military capabilities. High Commander Veltara raised her hand for silence. "Captain Morrison, the Council needs time to discuss these matters. Would humanity be willing to establish a temporary embassy here while we work out the details of our relationship?" Jake looked at his officers. Ryan Phillips nodded approvingly. Amy Roberts gave him a thumbs up. Lisa Barnes smiled and pointed toward the alien representatives, many of whom seemed to be listening intently to the conversation. "High Commander, humanity accepts your proposal. We will establish an embassy and begin the process of formal diplomatic relations. But I want to be very clear about our position." Jake turned to address the entire assembly one final time. "Representatives, humanity offers friendship to all species who approach us with peaceful intentions. We will defend ourselves and our allies with whatever force is necessary. We do not seek to conquer or control anyone, but we will not be conquered or controlled by anyone else. We are not asking for permission to exist. We are not requesting approval for our independence. We are informing you that humanity has taken its place among the species of this galaxy, and we will maintain that place through strength, diplomacy, and the simple principle that free people do not bow to tyrants." The chamber was completely silent as Jake finished speaking. Thousands of alien representatives considered his words, understanding that the balance of galactic power had just shifted dramatically. An old alien with wise eyes and silver skin slowly stood up from his seat. "Captain Morrison, I am Elder Quantum of the Zeridian Assembly. My species was among the first to join the Council 3,000 years ago. In all that time, we have never encountered a species like humanity. You fight not for conquest, but for the right to remain free. This is something we can respect.